What's up, rabbit hole dwellers? Me and Joel had just come on to have a chat because we've been talking offline. So we just wanted to sort of like maybe put it out there a little bit because we've been talking about ego in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And Joel, what are you thinking about all that, mate?
It's an interesting topic, thought-provoking topic, and it's something I personally have noticed started increasing in 2018, I would say. Prior to that, maybe because Bitcoin never had like Bitcoin Twitter or these, you had Reddit, you had the talk forum, but like never something as toxic as Bitcoin Twitter. Um, but yeah, it's definitely all around us now.
Because you've been in Bitcoin longer than I have, quite a bit. And I think as these sort of bear cycles, bull cycles go on, I'm very observant about what's going on. But I think we're at a point in the bull run or whatever you want to call it in this cycle, maybe, where people, this is my feeling, this is my interpretation, right? It might not be right, but this is how I see the ecosystem. And the reason why I'm defending myself and giving you that context, right, is because I'm cautious that if I say something, it's going to be burnt down and fucking I'm going to be cancelled or people are going to be calling me a shitcoiner. And I think that's the stage we're at the moment with the ecosystem because I get this sense of like, I want to be honest and open in what I think. And if you don't share that perspective, there seems to be this sort of like culture of, I don't know, coming at you. Does that make sense? And it kind of like puts me off a little bit. And I know like this whole Vlad interview with Roger Ver, sorry, recently is
Yeah,
called
I don't know.
maybe. It's caused like this sort of whirlwind of controversy on Bitcoin Twitter. And I know like, both of those people have a history within the past and the things that they said and the things that they've may have shielded and the divergence that they've come to sort of moving away from the space. And people should be criticized for those choices and that there should be sort of a voice for people to air their displeasure and frustration. But also like I was pretty much unaware of who this Roger guy was until this Vlad
Mm,
interview was even out there. And I didn't
mm,
even realize he had such a long history in
mm,
Bitcoin, in BTC, and that he had quite a significant and it seemed respected voice at one stage. But now he's gone over to the dark side of Bitcoin Cash and other sort of shit that he's sort of like whatever he's doing. And it's almost like had he still been part of the conversation earlier on in my Bitcoin journey, then I might have known a little bit more about, or I might have understood things quicker. But because he's been essentially shunned and cancelled and pushed out and never spoken about again, it's almost like become a space where certain voices or narratives, despite their historical significance, have just sort of like forgotten about. Does that make sense?
mm,
And
mm.
it makes me think, okay, well, why are we doing that? Why are we just because this person's got a different opinion or they've gone to some other project that they haven't contributed significantly in some way, and maybe that we should still make that part of the conversation and really look into the reasons deep down why they went away in the first place, and maybe we need to reflect on ourselves as to why that is in some way. But it just seems like it's them, they're the shillers, they're the shit scam people, which might well be true, but at the same time, does that mean we should give them any opportunity to speak? They're the sort of things that are going through my head.
Yeah, so I got two takes on it. So first of all, for those who don't know, Roger Ver was probably one of the earliest Bitcoin investors as well, and not talking about investing into the coin, so Bitcoin as a currency, but actually into founding startups and like being sort of the unofficial spokesperson for Bitcoin at one point. He also carried the nickname Bitcoin Jesus because I think some of the outlets named him this because he was just so ever present. And during the block size wars, he was definitely one of the guys, at the forefront saying we need to increase the block size. And he used his connections to. I'm not sure if he made a lot of money early on in technology startups or something in the internet boom age, because I guess he's around your age, maybe just 2-3 years younger or something. And
How old he is?
point, yeah, at that point he was then pissed off about the way the block size wars has been going, and he then forked off with Bitcoin Cash.
He fucked off.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean it as fucked off. It's like they literally forked.
Like
so yeah, I didn't mean it this way. I literally meant it technically speaking. And so yeah, from that point forward, he's sort of been, I would categorize it a bit salty. There's also countless memes with him. There's a very famous interview between him and Carvalho where he freaks out. He shows the middle finger. He basically calls himself God at this point. And yeah, this is sort of the history of him. And then the second point I want to make, this is maybe a bit the journalist in me where I go, I don't have to agree with Roger Ver at all. Even his stance, it also has gotten to his head, I think. This is safe to say at one point, because if you call yourself Bitcoin Jesus as well, like, you know, you sort of have a personality
But how many
disorder.
big egos are there currently in the space that are of a big of ego as he is or was as well, right? There's so much ego in the space.
That's the point I kind of want to make, because if I want to cover a story for the sake of seeing what's going on and reporting on that, first of all, I have to speak to both sides of the aisle. That's number one, which I think is kind of happening. But then if you invite these people, so for example, if we would invite Roger Ver on, I'd be not interested in hearing his tantrums. I would tell him, if you show me the middle finger or something, I'm going to kick you out of the room, because this is at that point not only offensive to our audience, but also it's just time wasting. I'm genuinely interested in hearing your arguments and then having counter arguments or follow-up questions and coming up to a shared middle where we can basically say, okay, you think this and that happened and it didn't, and this is why that succeeded, that didn't succeed, and where are we going from here on out? But the point you made is very much true. There is so much ego hunting going on as well, which makes me wonder, like, is it then that we have these discussions, you know, by the likes of like Giacomo's always very vocal. I think Samson Mao, there's countless clips of him and Roger Ver at a conference, and like Roger is also very much defensive of Craig Wright, obviously, because he also forked off and created his own version of whatever BSV is. And so there's instantly this, it's not really about the subject matter of what is Bitcoin at this point, but it then becomes of like, oh, you're either on my side or this side. And I don't think this is a overall good thing. It should be more, okay, guys, you have your sides and we are now going to clash here and we're going to have these debates. And we really should have them. So I think the idea behind Flat was good to have him on and to tell him, like, what do you mean Bitcoin has failed? But it kind of gave a sour taste when apparently, I don't know if he got paid or anything, but like there have been previous involvements with other projects, and like Flat has always had this this history with like different stuff as well. So it was kind of untransparent at this point, and I think this is the overall issue, at least from the way I take it in.
And didn't like Roger kind of donate loads to the Free Ross?
Yes,
you know,
yes.
the Silk Road guy as well, and it's difficult because like at the end of the day, like we're all in the Bitcoin ecosystem in our own way, and what I mean by that is like, don't tell me about where I should be or what I should be thinking about Bitcoin and stuff. And sort of just because you've got a bigger audience or bigger reach doesn't mean that your voice is any more significant than mine, or, you know, I'm less right than you are. And, you know, calling people out with such a significant voice kind of, I don't know. I'm torn is what it is, and what I'm actually doing right now is thinking out loud about how I feel about it all, because like Vlad, he provides a lot of valuable content, right? There's a lot of his podcast that is good signal for Bitcoin, and yeah, it is controversial having somebody like Roger on, but also you're right in the sense that maybe we should be a bit more critical when we've got the opportunity to sort of like defend our own perspectives a bit more and actually call him out and argue our point more. But we should do that in a way that doesn't sort of provide this kind of whirlwind of people fucking, I don't know, getting proper triggered out there about it all. I don't know. It's difficult for me. It's difficult. I'm trying to sort of figure out where I am.
I'm curious because you don't know the history as well as I do, just because I've seen the posts and I've lived through the area. Your first perception of now that you looked up Roger Ver, what was sort of your first impression and how did you approach it? Because I think this would be now an interesting take to hear it from a Bitcoiner, pretty much in the Bitcoin ecosystem, but not knowing what the backstory was.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, had I had a full map here, had there have been these opportunities where he was still kind of semi-engaged in the space, or people still spoke about his work and contributions, rather than just this wall of silence. Maybe, like I was saying earlier, maybe I would have made a different choice down this particular route, or I wouldn't have found it as
So you just found out about
there.
what he does from watching the clips, I guess, and Googling up.
Yeah, because because I'm completely focused on BTC and the Bitcoin ecosystem. I'm currently looking at it from a lens that's available to me, from the voices that are out there, and I'm just trying to hear different podcasts, different signals, different perspectives. But it was news to me that, you know, there's a whole host of people that I don't know about because they're just kind of being mentally cancelled from the ecosystem, and they've become these ghosts that we never talk about as a contributor to Bitcoin because they went over to some other project or different token, or they've been revealed to be a scammer or a shitcoiner. It doesn't mean that the things they've said in the past, or maybe even some of the things they're currently saying now, are invalid. It's like black or white, good or bad. You know, yeah, you're right or wrong. There's no sort of nuance and grey or like discussion. It's kind of like you're either fully in this vision or you're not. Because if you're not, you're a shitcoiner, you're a scammer. And it just seems like, you know.
It's sort of, ironically enough, I'm personally writing a blog post now for my own Substack that is called Bitcoin Needs More Debates. And I want to dive down this rabbit hole a bit myself.
It really does.
And the interesting thing for me is I actually picked it up during my interview with Robin on his show, where he said, you know, at one point I might be bored by Bitcoin. It will not be in like the foreseeable future, but like maybe 10, 15 years, Bitcoin will be not good enough for me anymore to spend much of this time out here. And now this situation creeps up and I kind of go like, Satoshi's last words, so to speak, were, I found something more interesting and I'm moving on. That doesn't mean that he's left the ecosystem in a sense. I mean, he's not active in stuff anymore. But it could also be the same for us at one point, because I do see a future where if I know I've contributed to Bitcoin, there are other interests in my life which I want to pursue. Not from a currency standpoint speaking or anything of this, but like, you know, everyone has different hobbies, different tastes in these things. So it is interesting as a thought experiment. What if that happened to us? Like you've succeeded, so to speak, in Bitcoin. Maybe you've got a stacking goal. You successfully helped launch a company or the show or whatever. And at that point you go, okay, I'm done now. Does that leave you out of the ecosystem, or does everything you've contributed at this point add to your path into Bitcoin? And with Roger Ver, it's very much interesting because you're right. He contributed to the Free Ross campaign. He was also very much a outspoken guy who goes like, we're against the state, so to speak, so not state-controlled money and all of these things.
A big medium of exchange guy.
Exactly. And now he sort of went in with the Bitcoin Cash thing. And from my outside view into Bitcoin Cash, it's sort of become this thing that a lot of companies work with it, and it got listed on most of the exchanges pretty quickly. But it doesn't seem to be holding up to what he believes in. But then again, if he's working as a businessman, you always do these sacrifices between full-on idealism and the sense of doing business. But this leaves me wondering what happens. You also see this with Antonopoulos because he got interested in ETH at one point. People shove him out. And for me personally, he was one of the biggest contributors to getting Bitcoin. So this is the weird take I think we're going currently.
Yeah, same with Antonopoulos, of course. Although you do see him more often popping up because, you know, his speeches are so epic that they're hard to ignore. But also, yeah, you're right. He's sort of not as celebrated and stuff in the space because of choices he's made. And it's almost like this kind of loyalty test, I suppose. Are you 100% loyal to Bitcoin? Because if you're not 100% loyal to Bitcoin, in the way that I don't know, would you call them maxis, or these people who have one particular view of what Bitcoin is for them, and they've got a big voice in the space, that if you don't fit that tight sort of narrative and confirm, the way they see it, then you're kind of ostracized in a way.
Yeah, good question. Is it the maxi group? I wouldn't say so. I would say it's the let's call them the big voices of Bitcoin group, and it's just the guys you see at most conferences. You hear their podcasts and these kind of things. So it kind of feels like there's a cool Bitcoin club and just like the normal Bitcoin crowd. But that's my perception now. Everyone should obviously do their own stuff.
Saying.
Yeah, sort of feels like, because you sometimes see this at the conferences. There's then a VIP area, which I don't actually have an issue with, because the conference can make more money on these tickets. It's a sell technique. But then you have these boating parties on like yachts and these kind of things, where I go like, good for you that you get on the yacht. I mean, probably everyone wants to at least be on the yacht at one point and see what the fuss is about. But it sort of adds to this weird, like, there's this cool club and you're not in it kind of vibe.
The Bitcoin Illuminati.
Yeah, that's the title for the show.
But it's true though. But also sometimes I wonder, when I go on my little deep mental dives of like trying to work out the space and trying to sort of like make sense of it, is like, at the end of the day, right, we are very defensive of Bitcoin, and quite rightly so, because there's a lot of fucking FUD that comes Bitcoin's way, and it's right that we should defend it in at all costs. And sometimes I think in our sort of defense of it, sometimes we can defend it a little bit too hard and become too rigid as well. But also,
you get too involved at this point.
Exactly, you get too involved. And also, like, there's a part of it, I think, where for me personally, I've realized that I've been scammed most of my life, and I've walked around my life completely ignorant to what fiat money is. But now I understand the truth, and it's almost like, if there's any kind of inclining from the Bitcoin ecosystem that somebody isn't quite sort of saying the right thing, or they are sort of talking about some other opportunities elsewhere, the fact that people are going to be so gullible enough to fall for it and then leave Bitcoin. Like, we feel kind of almost vulnerable or insecure about people in the space that, if they do say something different, that we're just going to tell, fuck off, then we don't want you. You're not a Bitcoiner, you're a scammer. Because like, we spent most of our life sort of like ignorant to it all. Now the truth, like, we're kind of like triggered all the time about these scams that we could get drawn into if we just listen to it. And maybe we just need to sort of have confidence with our own fucking minds here and make our own choices based on what we know about Bitcoin.
And I guess it's good that everyone adds their two cents to the discussion. So whatever I deem as good or normal or healthy is something someone else sees entirely differently. Maybe they agree on some points. And I think this generally adds to the brighter future we want to build. But yeah, it kind of leads into many points you and I have been raising countless times, the whole ego thing, like, should Bitcoin be your entire personality, which you also see a lot in these discussions, right? People just cling to it so heavily, which then leads to things like, should you have holes in your underwear to stack more sats? I kind of go like, it's okay to buy new underwear, guys.
You should see my socks, mate. One sec. Yeah, I've got them on.
Okay, socks are a different thing. Socks are mine look the same. Socks are a bit a different thing, because at the end of the day, you just get holes in them and you continue living with it. But yeah, I think it should teach you stuff about money, the way it works, the way you can save. At least that's how I look at it. Others may say the way you can pay or interact with someone around the globe. But it shouldn't take up our entire beliefs, I think, because everyone has their own interpretation of what Bitcoin is.
100%. And I'm fully aware, I've become like conscious in this discussion with you, this is going to go out there in the world. And like, there's a part of me that thinks, we're being brave by saying the things we're saying, because they're not actually said often. And I wonder sometimes if we sort of like within this sort of whirlwind of Bitcoin just try to sort of like go for the popular narratives and sort of like, but we're saying things that are unpopular, and I'm just really just being honest and what I'm thinking and the way I see it. And I really believe in Bitcoin. I'm spending a lot of time. I'm actually considering leaving my fiat job to go more, into the ecosystem and spend more time there to sort of really fully understand it as best I can. So I'm committed to it, but I don't want to be committed to it in a way that people can just sort of like, I don't know, not engage earnestly or not open to sort of like change or discussion, without having to feel like they're fucking betraying Bitcoin in some way by sort of criticizing the people in it, you know? What would you guys think?
Should Ian leave
you
his
wanted to
job?
make a point. Yeah. Should I leave my... Just reply GFY in the comments.
Yep, if we see a lot of GFY, then we know what's up. I would agree with that. And, I would even go a step further. There's a good friend of mine. He's high up in the army, in the Swiss army. And he once told me, if you don't put your life on the line, life's not worth living. Because at least you stood up for something. He literally does by going to wars and shit. But I think if you see a injustice being done, something not right in the world, if you dare to speak up, and all we're doing now is just raising the question, how should we treat this situation? And you're not open for the discussion, I personally think you've not lived a joyful life or life to its fullest potential. So I don't see an issue with it. There's certain things you can say, there's certain things you can't, but most definitely I think we should be able to ask the question, because if you don't, then we're part of the censorship apparatus that we're kind of fighting on all fronts, on free speech, on monetary basis, and all of these things.
100%. And maybe, these sort of like videos are needed in this space, but here we are putting our voices out there, and like feedback's welcome, discussion. I'm happy to sort of like continue this discussion in the comments if you want to, or it can just fall flat on its ass, but at least we've said what we wanted to say. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin, is that we can put ourselves out there, but the way sometimes the ecosystem sort of churns them out is maybe questionable, and that's what we're talking about here today. Joël, do you want to close us?
I think
are we going to shill BTC Prague?
Yeah, I was going to this in a second step, but I think just generally our tagline, which you may have noticed we're using in the intro and outro, it's not a bad motto to live by. So, stay curious and try to find out why certain things are happening. This doesn't mean you have to agree with everything, but just having the curiosity and being there and being able to, ask these questions or give your take on it. I think that's going to take us a long way. Because, guess what? That's what others are not doing in the traditional system, in the financial system, but also on other ends. So we should be a beacon of hope there and do it differently. And just generally speaking, if we are full of shit now and you think like, oh, you're two idiots, you deserved cancellation, also let us know. But more important, I think, is if you want to, approach us, we both are going to be in Prague at the BTC Prague conference. And if you want to be there as well, we've got a checkout code, RHSPOD, down below for 10% off. You get an additional 5% off if you pay in Bitcoin. That's what Matthias told us in his episode. And if you want to continue this discussion in person or just go to your first conference or your 100th conference, it doesn't matter at this point. I think it's always healthy to go there, because you do see that also, Ian, a lot of these discussions are just held online. And I think that also adds a bit to the drama we're seeing.
Yeah, of course. Social media and the barrier of sort of meeting in person definitely goes a long way in all this. So that should be acknowledged, absolutely. And don't cancel us. We're just being earnest. But in any case, guys, stay curious.